Hi, welcome to the Nonprofit Mastermind Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Brooke Richie-Babbage. Every Tuesday on the regular Nonprofit Mastermind podcast, I do a deep dive into the strategies and mindset behind launching and leading a high-impact nonprofit. This Thursday Spotlight series is a special weekly tribute in which I showcase and celebrate the organizations inside of my Impact Accelerator program. I lift up their mission and their work and their personal stories of leadership. I started the Accelerator because I believe that one of my true purposes in this life is to work for and support efforts leading to positive social change and social justice. The organizations that apply for and join my Accelerator are truly changing the world. I believe that. And I truly, truly love it. Continues to be such an honor and joy for me to aim my experience, my passions, and my resources at helping them grow their revenue and their impact. This series is my celebration of them. This week, I'm talking with Jessica Sloan, Executive Director of RaisedByUs. RaisedByUs has a big, hairy, audacious goal, one that resonates really deeply with me in its power and simplicity: to make the world a better, kinder, and more just place. They are literally aiming to raise as many charitable dollars as possible for global causes by mobilizing the power of individual philanthropy. What's cool about their model is that they leverage the workplace and workplace giving to narrow the gap between wanting to give back and actually doing it. Things like how startups and emerging companies define the kind of social good footprint they want to have and then actually build volunteer and giving policies to get them there. The relationship between corporate culture and employee giving and how you can shape one to influence the other. Ultimately, giving feels good. People like giving. So what they're tackling is how we can leverage the power of the workplace and our natural instinct to give to mobilize dollars for good. In this conversation, Jessica and I talk big picture and brass tacks. We talk about the mechanics of partnering with businesses and corporations to do social good, how employee giving can be an important key to helping nonprofits unlock small dollar donors, and what it really means to be philanthropic. It is a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so glad to have you here. I'm really excited to talk with you about your organization.
I'm super excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me and RaisedByUs.
Absolutely. It's such a unique model that you guys use and just such a bold, big sort of goal and type of impact. And it's a really different kind of organization than I usually have on the show. So let's dive in. I'm super excited for you to talk about sort of how you guys do what you do and your role. I want to start actually with the sort of big picture, the North Star. That's always where I like to start. Yeah. What's the North Star for your organization? Tell us a little bit about what you guys do and why, the change you're trying to create in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for those who are listening who don't know about RaisedByUs, as you mentioned, we are a bit of a non-traditional nonprofit in that we work with high growth companies, mostly in the tech sector or somehow related to tech. And we help them build and run their social impact programs. So we have a very big sort of North Star and big, hairy goal. And it might sound trite, but it's really true. So I think like the most macro level, we do our part to make the world a better, kinder, more just place. We see that
goes right to the heart of, I love that.
And I think it's, like so many nonprofits probably, can sort of say that, but, we see that there's tremendous opportunity when you can bring people together to drive change. And so our kind of North Star, the reason that we do our work and what we're doing is each year we try to raise as many charitable dollars as possible for global causes. So thousands of different causes all over the world. And we do that by mobilizing the generosity of individuals. And what's super unique about RaisedByUs is that we use the workplace as our vehicle and like the environment to drive change. So we see that there's a tremendous power, like I said, in bringing people together, but there's tremendous power in the workplace and kind of engaging folks through that environment, both on the company level and on the individual level, to give back meaningfully to the world. So we're super excited to do it and engage all these folks who are, usually in the very beginning stages of their philanthropic journeys.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, I think, obviously the North Star of making the world a more beautiful and just place is just, who can argue with that? It's beautiful. And I think the way that you guys do it and the focusing on the sort of mobilizing individuals as philanthropists and not traditional philanthropists is a really unique way of like mobilizing the forces of good for positive change, right? So you have like nonprofits that do direct work. And what I find really interesting is you guys sort of go out into the world and say, how can we build all the resources we can and mobilize all the resources we can in service of those sort of nonprofits that are doing great work. So walk us a little bit more through your model. You talked about mobilizing the generosity of individuals through the workplace. What does that look like?
Yeah. So currently we work with about 27 companies, and they have about collectively 20,000 employees across 4 continents. So again, super exciting because we get to engage people all over the world. And we really do hit not only a variety of charities and causes, but causes that are, locally relevant and culturally relevant to the countries that our employees are based in, which is really neat for us. So we work in sort of 2 ways. We work with companies, again, high growth, early, mid-stage startups, tend to be, innovative in their industry, trying to solve certain problems in a sustainable, unique way. And they tend to attract a younger workforce, right? So we're mainly talking Gen Z, early millennials who more and more in today's world need, and it's not just a want, they need to see that their workplace reflects their values. Absolutely. And is creating a space for them to give back, and that they give back, right? That they're socially responsible. So we work with each of our companies, we kind of meet them where they're at, but they're sort of the company level where we consult on their philanthropic and social good strategy. So that could be anything from helping them identify pillars and cause areas that are important to them as a company, thinking about their employee giving and volunteer policies, making sure that they have best in class strategies and best practices and programming to support that. And then really where they lean in on us is that we help build and actually facilitate employee facing and often employee driven programs that help individuals connect to the causes that they care about and connect, and this is really crucial to us, connect in ways that are personally meaningful to them. So we do not, RBU, Raised by Us, is cause agnostic. So we are here to educate and empower and inform folks to kind of figure out what they care about and create pathways for them to connect to them. And so we do that through employee giving kind of activations where employees can make donations directly to nonprofits, usually in really fun ways, which I can talk more about. We try to look for and seek out high impact volunteer opportunities because we recognize too that giving back is like a love language. People give back and what's meaningful to them might be different from what's meaningful to me. So we try to create multiple entry points so every employee can have a way to get involved in a way that's personally meaningful to them and to a charity that they, seek to support.
Yeah. So you talked about fun ways that people can give. What are some of those?
Well, and so, if I say it at face value, then it's sort of like, what does that have to do with giving? But the reason that we do this is because there are millions of dollars that go unused of employee matching dollars. So employees are a lot of employers. So
many people don't know that. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So a lot of companies are super generous and they set aside a certain budget each year. And they say, if an employee makes a donation, we'll match it for you. Literally $3 to $4 million go unused each year. So
I did not realize it was that high.
Oh, it's that high. It's that high. And so
that's interesting, both for individuals that are interested in giving, but also for nonprofits that have individual donors. That's a conversation to be having with your donors that work in companies. Hey, follow up. Do you have a matching, does your company have a matching donor? I bet that conversation almost often does not happen.
Exactly. And, we realize there's like, we scratched our head about this a lot. And we realize that, there's all this research that shows that people are inherently good, right? They want to do good things. They want to feel good by giving back. They don't always know how. They don't always have the resources to sort of enable that. And so, what we see is that these companies build these like really robust strategies that are super generous, but we see industry-wide about 10% utilization of the benefits like a matching program. And so what we try to do is create programming that is going to cut through the virtual noise of us all we are being remote, because we know that it's so much harder to engage folks in this environment, and actually pull on certain like extrinsic motivation levers that are actually going to get them to not only participate, but actually make a donation. So all that to say is that we create, we call them impact campaigns. And again, they have sort of multiple entry points for folks to get involved, but we use game mechanics and gamification to get people excited. And so they don't always necessarily realize that that's what they're doing, but that's what we're doing. And so some of the incentives that we build in, for example, might be if a company hits a specific collective goal, right? So say they said, if we raise $5,000 during this campaign, X will happen. And some examples of that are we've seen department heads, leaders, and even CEOs raise their hand to go in a dunk tank. We had one CEO dye his hair purple to match the company color. We most recently had one of our company CEOs do a push-up for every donor that they had in their launch campaign. Pretty impressive. So we build in all these sort of incentives to get people to say like, hey, that's fun, but they're doing it for a really good cause. And it's a way to get people excited, to have that kind of like social proof element, because then you see other people doing it and you want to get involved, and it's memorable. And that's what we wanted. We want to make philanthropy and giving back kind of challenge this like antiquated model of the tried and true. A philanthropist is like a 1% older white male, and that everybody else who, can't give as much is not as meaningful. And like, that's just not true.
It's funny, when I was running my organization, one of the most successful sort of new donor campaigns we did, my board chair worked at a bank, and, they wear suits every day. And she coordinated something called a Jeans Day campaign, where like the prize was, you give, and if you hit the certain amount, everybody gets to wear jeans. And when she told me the idea, I was like, look, I'll go, if you say that'll work, okay, but it doesn't seem like the biggest incentive. It was massively, people thought it was so much fun. It's like, okay.
Yes. We actually had, sometimes we incorporate wearing funny costumes to, Zoom meetings, running errands and things like that, and you'd be surprised how many people sort of raise their hand and are good sports about getting pied in the face or getting slimed or something ridiculous, but they know deep down that it's a way to kind of excite their colleagues and, give back in both a fun way, but also a meaningful way.
And it feeds into office culture. I mean, I think one of the things you're pointing out is that increasingly philanthropy isn't something that quote unquote other people do, or older people do, or extremely wealthy people do. And people are looking for their workplace culture to reflect who they are in other spheres of their lives. And so, it may seem silly to have a pie thrown in your face, but if you're building a culture of sort of, we're all in this together, we give together, we all contribute to meaningful causes, that's a value that people are looking for in work as employees.
Absolutely. And, I talked a little bit about that, like collective impact and collective action. And like, we truly believe, it's our name, Raised by Us, that if we are facilitating that us piece. And, oftentimes I think people will think about giving back. And if they don't have, again, they're not incredibly high net worth or wealthy, that they feel like, well, what is my $5 or $10 or $25 going to do? If you think about it, if an individual gave $25, let's say 4 times a year, that's $100. If you have a company of 500, that multiplier effect, when you look at it that way, is that your $25, this month is actually going to a much larger target, which is then being passed on to, nonprofits or a specific cause and making a real difference.
Absolutely. So this is a very particular sort of theory of change, right? That your organization deploys. Why why are you doing this? How did you come to be at the organization? I know through our work together, that this was an intentional move for you. How did you come to be doing this work, and why? What's your why in all of this?
So I've been in the nonprofit space my whole career, over 2 decades. Started off on the program side, working in mental health, and then worked in youth development organizations. And at that point, kind of switched over to the more admin side of fundraising and communications. So, I've seen firsthand how hard nonprofit fundraisers work to each and every year, each and every day to raise, sometimes, and I worked for fairly small organizations. So, busting our butts to raise like $3 million to meet our operating budget goals. And in doing that, we had worked with a lot of corporate partners, and I was a bit, and this is me talking, not raised by us, but
Absolutely.
my experience, I believe in the mission of the organizations that I work with and, trying to maximize our impact. And so I would get really excited when folks would reach out to me from like the corporate space and say, we believe in the work that we're doing. We want to work with you. We want our employees to have both a feel good moment, but, also support your mission. Can we plan, say a day of service or something like that? And so we would go and have this like exciting conversation. And I was so excited to bring folks into our space and introduce them to, whatever population we were working with. And then I was not always, but a lot of the times disappointed at the end of the call when I said, okay, great. Like doing something like that will cost X, Y, and Z. And I would be met with the response of, oh, well, we don't have a budget for that. Volunteering I thought would be free. And so there's this like common,
my God.
Everyone who's listening to this case, right, is nodding their head right now. Right. Yes. And it's so, and I would just kind of think, scratch my head and think, volunteering is maybe, it's not actually free for anyone when you think about it. On the nonprofit side, it's staff time, people paid.
It's a program, absolutely.
To both create, plan, and execute something like that. And on the employee side, they're taking time out of their work day. And so there's dollars associated there. So anyhow, I was always, there was a gap that I was seeing between the sort of like goal of companies helping and creating impact and actually like what they were able to achieve. Yeah. So that's my long-winded way of saying that when I heard about RaisedByUs, I was super excited by both the innovative model and the way that the organization was seeking to sort of change and challenge what giving back looks like in the corporate structure. And again, being able to work with these sort of innovative tech companies, many of whom are influencing like society and culture at large in other ways, right? That we have this tremendous opportunity to sort of flip the script on what workplace giving looks like, help companies be more socially responsible. And I just saw such a tremendous opportunity with that potentially like trickling up to these larger, like more sort of old school corporations that they might take note of what was happening on the more innovative side. And then you have, kind of it's twofold, right? Because then you have this opportunity that we are mostly working with first time small dollar donors. And again, so we're getting to challenge this notion that you have to be like ultra rich to make a difference. But also we're engaging people at like the very beginning of their philanthropic journey. So that's both incredibly exciting because we're helping them, be informed and hopefully build lifelong habits of giving back. But it's not only that, we're also accessing, because they've never given before, the dollars that we're able to generate through our programming are fueling like new dollars into the charitable universe. So it's money that didn't exist before. And so the potential to do that at scale is really super exciting. And so that was really what excited me the most, was sort of like challenging the tried and true of this is just always how it's been done, and helping companies and individuals actually drive, sustainable, real impact in ways that would benefit the nonprofits, which those are who we're championing.
So let's talk about that for a moment. I mean, you lifted up a number of things that I want to highlight. One is the impact on companies and on this sort of business, business isn't a sector unto itself, but on sort of how for-profit companies, businesses, corporations think about and treat philanthropy and giving back institutionally. And you've talked about the impact on the individuals and the employees, and sort of shifting the narrative around what it means to be philanthropic. And then there's the impact on the nonprofits, which are the point, right? So talk a little bit about the kinds of organizations that are being impacted and the kind of impact you're seeing on the nonprofits themselves.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it was actually, to me, when I first joined the team and was thinking about, like, we knew that we had kind of different groups of stakeholders, right? And so we knew that we were helping companies. We knew that we were helping, the individuals who are employees, and we knew that we were helping these like thousands of cause areas. But when I actually looked at it, there's like a fourth sector of the nonprofits. And as I mentioned before, we know that nonprofits work so hard to meet their operating budgets. They have, lean fundraising teams. And so in a really exciting way, like one of the indirect or maybe direct like benefits of our program is that by helping the nonprofits fundraise, that they're able to spend more time on the actual like mission driven work and their programming and less time, cultivating, stewarding those, small dollar donors that they just might not have the bandwidth or capacity to do it. It frees up the space to really focus on their mission driven work, which is super exciting. And in terms of the types of nonprofits, it really is open to anything. We tend to see with our portfolio a lot of social justice support, a lot of like climate change, sustainability, humanitarian, and a huge, I would say, desire for when disaster strikes, which unfortunately, whether it's natural disaster or a crisis like what's happening in Ukraine right now, it just is happening more frequently. So we're able to really like deploy help at like a drop of a hat by creating funds and campaigns for employees to sort of give back to. We also try to lift up. So that's to say that an employee can really give, or an individual or company can give to any sort of nonprofit of their choosing.
And it's employee driven. They identify the nonprofits.
Driven. We might help like vet and vet certain nonprofits. And when they ask for help, what we try to do whenever we can is to highlight and promote smaller nonprofits who might not be as well known, who are doing really critical work in these spaces, but might not have as big of a marketing budget as some of the older and kind of like wider reach organizations that we all know and tend to love, but that these are doing equally great work and need and deserve the highlight.
I mean, one of the things that's really exciting to me, just sort of, you and I have worked together long enough for you to know, I sort of love the like systems and the strategies piece. Fundraising, there's so much friction often when we think about fundraising. There are so many tactics that have to be deployed in order for fundraising to work, right? In order to bring in dollars. And I think particularly for, smaller, say under $2 or $3 million dollar organizations, often without realizing it, teams are spending just as much time on the tactics for small dollar donors as they are on tactics for mid-level or sort of major donors, right? There's very little differentiation. So you don't get that flywheel effect, right? Exactly. You don't get the sort of benefit of automating certain parts of your fundraising. And part of what I hear you talking about is the benefit, particularly at the smaller donor level, of taking some of those tactics and offboarding them, right? So that there's less friction to bring in each of those dollars, right? It brings down that sort of cost per donor amount, which is really just at the bottom line of a budget, incredibly important for smaller nonprofits.
Absolutely. And I mean, what's super cool is that oftentimes the nonprofits, not only do they not have to do the cultivation, but they really don't have to do anything. And I can give like a specific example and shout out to my friend Peter, who's an executive director of a wonderful organization called Summer Search. But we were doing one of these activations, really fun. It was a virtual scavenger hunt with one of our companies, and Summer Search was one of the organizations that we sort of vetted and elected to raise funds for. And through that game, I think we were able to raise a few $1,000s. And Peter had no idea. And so afterwards I shot him a note saying, oh, hey, we featured, Summer Search in one of our last activations. You should be getting a check for, $3,000 in the next month or so. And he was like, wait, what? Like, we didn't have to do anything. I didn't
magic
have
money.
He's like, oh, that's so cool. And, even if it's a small amount of someone's annual budget, again, it's money that maybe they weren't anticipating. They've now have X number of new donors, that are aware of their mission and they can continue to sort of engaged.
Sure, yeah.
But again, it frees up that time to focus on, maybe some bigger, more strategic issues that
higher leverage. Absolutely. So what is most exciting for you that's coming up in the next year for your organization?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. As you know, we not only do we work with startups, but we are very much a startup ourselves.
Yes.
So we've been working really hard on, building our foundation and our infrastructure. And we really see this year as like setting our pathway to massively scale in the year beyond.
We have really big goals, very exciting.
Big goals of doubling our impact. So over time, since we've been doing this, we've raised probably about $9.5 million. And last year we were able to direct over $2.5 million to charitable causes all over the world. This year, we're hoping to increase that to at least 4 million. So again, that's exciting. And one of the cool things that we're doing that I'm really excited about is we're actually partnered with the Gates Foundation right now. And we have been piloting some, as I mentioned earlier, game mechanics and gamification when it comes to giving. And so really thinking about kind of innovative ways that we can further mobilize and influence the generosity of folks through their workplace and ensure that those millions of dollars of matching dollars don't go unused each year. So I think when I look at it, that's what's most exciting is that we're really trying to find some levers that we can pull that are based on behavioral science to come up with tactics and solutions to drive generosity and minimize that barrier of whatever it is of people wanting to do good and actually taking action on it.
That is so exciting. That's just the potential for impact. Like we've been talking about individuals, nonprofits, the business sector, the nonprofit sector. It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know people listening are thinking, how can I get involved? I know you have nonprofits thinking that, individuals, companies. What are the different ways that people can learn about Raised by Us and get involved in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can check us out online on our website and social media, but, truth be told, those are both going to probably be going through a little bit of a rebrand, which is also exciting.
It's exciting.
It is. For the nonprofits listening, we want to know about you. We want, we have an open portfolio. It's not like we have like a fixed process right now. So if you're doing mission-driven, critical work, shoot us a note. We'd love to learn about you. And see if we can match you with some of the needs of our corporate partners. If you or someone works at a high growth company, shoot us a note. We'd love to work with you. Even if you have a social good strategy in place, we work with anything with companies that have nothing and are starting from scratch to folks who have things but want to just be able to enhance what they already have and drive more engagement and optimize it. And for folks who are interested and excited by, this sort of flipping the script of philanthropy and are interested in potentially joining a board or something like that, we're always recruiting. We are a nonprofit too, so we function on contributions as well. So if you were interested in learning more about how you can have impact, we're actually going to be doing our first capital campaign this year, which is super exciting to, again, kind of build that foundation for our growth in the years to come. So there's all these ways to get involved. We want to, talk to you and learn about your interests and see, what might be the best way for you to help us drive impact.
Fantastic. And is there a particular email that they should use to reach out, or should they go through the website? And if so, what's the web address?
Our web address is uniquely our name also, so you can't forget it. So it's www.raisedby.us, which is Raised by Us. You could also shoot us a note at hello@raisedbyus, and we'll be sure to get back to you and see what change we can make together.
Amazing. There are so many ways to get involved, which is also, I think, really unique and exciting. As always, Jessica, it has been great talking to you. Thank you for joining me on the show and showcasing your incredible work. I'm really excited for folks to hear about Raised by Us and how they can get involved. It's been great talking to you.
It's been great as always talking to you, and thank you for creating this platform for nonprofits and nonprofit leaders to learn from each other and to learn from you. And it's a crowded space, but such a warm and inviting space, and we all complement our work. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in your network and to be here sharing our story, and more good things to come.
Wonderful. More good things to come. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Nonprofit Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you think what we talk about here, the trainings and the guests and the conversations, could benefit another leader in your life, I'd love if you would leave a review and share with your friends. If you want to take the next step and begin to put into practice what we talk about on this podcast, I've created a toolkit where I collect and share downloads from many of our conversations. It's got templates, worksheets, and references to help you execute on what we talk about here on the Mastermind. There's lots of great stuff, and I add to it almost every week. You can download it at richiebabbage.com/architecture of impact toolkit. I also want to share another free resource for leaders of growing nonprofits. It's a free training. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. The 4 questions you need to ask to know if your nonprofit is really ready to scale. Growing an organization doesn't happen by accident, as we all know. You have to take the right strategic steps at the right time to avoid overwhelm and burnout and that horrible feeling that so many of us have had as you watch the work of your organization outstrip capacity and sometimes even funding. It's almost impossible to reverse engineer good growth. And by that, I mean growth that can be sustained over time, just by looking at what you think you see in other organizations. So in this free training, I help cut through all the noise, and I identify the 4 simple questions that, if you really engage with them and think about them, will tell you when you're ready to grow without frenzy, without overwhelm, and with the confidence that you're making the right moves for your organization. You can access the training at richiebabbage.com/ready to scale. Finally, if you'd like more leadership resources and strategies in your life, sign up for my weekly newsletter, Leadership Forward 321. Each week, I curate and share 3 articles, 2 resources, and a quote on a theme. You can get that at richiebabbage.com/leadership forward 321. That's all for now. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next week for more Mastermind.